The Holy Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad over the course of several years, with the first revelations beginning in the month of Ramadan in 610 AD during what is known as the Night of Destiny. But how did the Quran reach us today in its final form? In what order was the Quran revealed, and who compiled it and why? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe to The Muslim Vibe on YouTube and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video. The Prophet Muhammad is described in the Quran as Ummi, which some Muslims interpret as illiterate and others as one who was not formally taught literacy. He received his first revelation whilst isolated in a cave in Mount Hira, nearby Mecca. The verses revealed to him were, "Read in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, your Lord is most generous. He who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not."
God states in Surah Shura that He communicates to human beings only through three methods. Number one, through direct revelation, meaning there's no intermediary at all. The second method was from behind a veil. So, for example, a voice would be heard from behind an object, like when Prophet Musa heard a voice from behind the burning bush. And the third method is through indirect revelation, so through an intermediary like an angel. We believe that the majority of the Quranic verses were revealed or brought down to the Prophet by the angel Jibreel. Out of the small pool of people who could read and write at the time of the Prophet, he appointed special scribes known as Kutab al-Wahi. So they were basically scribes of the revelation, and they would note down the verses as they were revealed. So he would dictate it to them essentially, and they would write it down. And he told them exactly where the verse, or where the ayah was supposed to be fixed in a chapter, because the understanding was always there that this was going to be a book, and it was being revealed as a book, just like previous scriptures.
Reciting verses from memory was common practice in the early days of Islam, as they had strong memories and prided themselves on a very strong oral tradition.
The reason why the Quran was a linguistic miracle in the first place was because it catered to the fascination and almost obsession of the Arabs with the Arabic language. So they had a very rich oral tradition, a poetic tradition, both poetry and prose actually, where they would memorize and recite very, very long pieces of poetry. So reciting from memory and memorizing was a very common practice in the early days of Islam.
The Prophet was so committed to encouraging writing that the number of literate Muslims gradually increased. He did this through various means. Firstly, he got prisoners of war to teach the Muslims how to read and write in exchange for their freedom. Secondly, he called upon scribes for writing letters, contracts, war records and treaties in addition to revelation. Thirdly, he encouraged reciting from written text in addition to memorization. As a result, there were many scattered extracts and complete copies of the Quran in individuals' possession by the time of the Prophet's death, and there is disagreement amongst Muslims as to who compiled it into one coherent whole text. Regarding the time of his death, Ibn Abbas states, "The Prophet recited the book before Gabriel every year in the month of Ramadan, and in the month in which he died he recited it before him twice." Some believe that reciting the Quran twice refers to the Quranic revelation being compiled into a complete and final version, and the process termed as al-ard al-akhira, the final presentation. According to a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Abu Bakr ordered the written pieces and parchments of the Quran to be collated into one book after over 400 memorizers of the Quran were killed in 2 battles. According to the hadith, Abu Bakr said to Zayd ibn Thabit, "You should search for the fragmentary scripts of the Quran and collect it." Zayd said, "So I started compiling the Quran by collecting it from the leafless stalks of the date palm tree, and from the pieces of leather and hides, and from the stones, and from the chests of men who had memorized the Quran." The manuscripts of the Quran remained with Abu Bakr till Allah took him unto him. Then it remained with Umar till Allah took him unto him, and then with Hafsa bint Umar. Despite the collation, there was no immediate rush by the Muslims to avail themselves of this codex, as it is understood that copies of the Quran were available amongst Muslims. During the Caliphate of Uthman, 20 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad, The caliphate had grown considerably into Iraq, Syria, Egypt and Iran, with a variety of languages and dialects being spoken across the region, creating a perceived need for the clarification of the recitation of the Holy Quran. According to Sahih al-Bukhari, Hudayfa bin Yaman was concerned about how the people of Iraq and Sham differed in their recitation of the Quran. Uthman therefore requested the manuscript of the Quran from Hafsa so he could order it to be compiled into one unified codex. He appointed a committee of 4 people, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Zubair, Sa'ad ibn al-As, and Abdul Rahman bin al-Harith to transcribe a master copy of the Quran. More people were recruited into the committee to make 12 in total, with Ubay in charge. When the book was compiled, Uthman sent copies to Kufa, Basra, Damascus and kept one in Medina. According to the majority of historians and scholars, this is the Quran that is with us today, with the 114 surahs in the same order, though it is debatable whether the present order was directed by the Prophet before his passing or decided by his companions later. Uthman also sent an expert qari with every mushaf so that he could serve as a teacher. Shia traditions differ slightly. Ayatollah al-Khoy, for example, believes that the Quran was complete during the time of the Prophet. He first cites the numerous uses of the word book in the Holy Quran, which is not used for something retained in memory or scattered on parchments, as well as the Prophet declaring that he is leaving the book behind after his death, saying, "I leave amongst you 2 valuable things, the book of Allah and my progeny." Furthermore, in an incident mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, when the Prophet Muhammad was on his deathbed and asked for a pen to write something that would prevent people from going astray, Umar ibn al-Khattab told the Prophet that the Book of God was enough for the Muslims. This alludes to the fact that there was already a book present. Secondly, the Quran states that the Prophet recites from a written text when it says, "A messenger from God reciting pure pages."
The fact that the Quran challenges the disbelievers to produce something like the Quran, be it 10 surahs, be it 1 surah, alludes to the fact that they had access to the Quran and the Quran was in public hands. Because if it wasn't, then the challenge, wouldn't hold water. And it could only be serious if they had access to the Quran to be able to produce something like it.
Khoy concludes that rather than compiling the Quran, Uthman effected a consensus on one unified recitation.
There are many accounts in both Shi'i and Sunni hadith books that Ali ibn Abi Talib possessed a personal transcript of the Quran in which he collated after the death of the Prophet, and he'd made a commitment not to leave his house until he had completed this task within 6 months of the passing of the Prophet. The surahs were arranged in order of revelation, accompanied by interpretation of the verses in the margins.
In any case, in 25 AH, 5 master copies were prepared under the guidance of Uthman, and all the main existing fragmentary codices were burnt, erased or melted down. Uthman was criticized by some for destroying the fragments, but his actions were after prior consultation with senior companions. Ali ibn Abi Talib said about this, "By Allah, Uthman did not do anything in this matter of the Mus'haf except that it was with our unanimous approval." Whilst the discussion on the compilation of the Holy Quran is certainly a fascinating one, it is important to also deepen our own personal relationships with the Holy Book through recitation, study and contemplation. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, "This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah." For more great content like this, be sure to subscribe to the Muslim Vibe on YouTube and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video.